So I am not from Splunk. I'm not a vendor. I just use Splunk at my work a lot. So this is and it's also an impromptu talk. So hopefully these slides make sense in some kind of way. Basically, Splunk is more than just a security product. It's also usage analysis. So what I've been submitting to my organization is that not only can the Cyber Operations Center use Splunk to look for malicious behavior, but the internal operations can use it to analyze user behavior. So where InfoSec is looking for the 1% case, the rest of the organization can look for the 90%. And we can use the same data set and reuse that for different use cases. So that's where we're seeing the value of Splunk. So what is it? So basically, it's a search and analysis engine. It's a tool. You download it. I'll tell you about the different versions and different pricing models. But basically, the free version, you're able to index about 500 megs of data a day. So that can be any type of machine data. It could be Twitter data, could be astronomy data, really anything that has a timestamp and a text format. And there's also ways to get binary data in there. But it's just a little bit fatter than your usual text document. So we're trying to use this to correlate things like, if we see our organization's name come up on Twitter a lot, is there a related malware incident that happens later? So we could try and line up the spikes between what's happening in the human world and what's happening in the machine world. So this is its GUI. This is what it looks like. The magic sauce, the reason why I'm so excited about this product is that it is not a relational database. On the back end, it uses MapReduce and Hadoop, and these events that you stream into Splunk are all time-based. So what happens is MapReduce runs, and it splits out all the key value pairs of all the text that's in your data, in your log files or Twitter, and breaks it up by key value pairs, words. So when you look at an event, you want to look across, let's say, the last 24 hours and look for something that happened. That key is time. So the primary key on this data is the time. Last 24 hours, last 4 hours, last 30 days. So these bars are the combination of events from many different sources at that time. So you're able to see, okay, what was my website traffic doing, what was my firewall traffic doing, all in the same screen instead of going to different systems and logging in and doing a grep or a tail of the logs. So that's really where our operational benefit comes in. Not only is it helping us with debugging applications, which are load balanced, it helps the developers not have to go in and look at each of those consoles and try and figure out what just happened. So this is a one screen kind of interface. Oops. So the old way was using relational databases. They are slow. When you start to try and do schemas for different types of routers, hardware, you start to get into this big data space where the data has a lot of different variety. You can't really normalize it in any sense. And when you try and start to do joins across your Cisco data, your checkpoint data, you're going to get a lot of slowdown. And eventually, those queries can't really run. You'll get to a point where they just will stop running in traditional relational databases. So again, the key here is that MapReduce and Hadoop are running in the background to give you that distributed parallel searching capability. So when they say why Google your logs, they're using the Google algorithm, basically. So this is from their site. Basically, you want to take your hardware data, your database logs, your event logs, your application logs, your website logs, even things that are happening on the hypervisor, across Windows. If you're logging both I work in corporate IT, so we're logging our users' activity on their machines and then cross-correlating it with their activity on the server. So one of the things we're starting to see from a security perspective is that these a user may be accessing the system very legitimately through their user account, but in actuality that traffic is malicious because the enemy has already hijacked that user account. So we want to look at good user behavior, known accounts, and see what kinds of spikes are happening. So I just put this up that The old way of doing things, at least for us, was getting notified of problems that are happening in the application space by tickets, user-reported problems. We don't do that anymore. We can kind of see the 500 errors, the Java stack trace errors, anything like that in real time. Oops, I did it again. So there are a couple of different versions. Like I said, the free version is 500 megs a day that you can pipe through. So that's a perpetual license. So that means every day you can log 500 megs worth of text. There's a compression rate, so you're actually not storing that much. The best case I've seen is about 1/10 the size. Again, that's the MapReduce feature, just kind of pulling away all the blank space. So some people are getting almost 10 times compression. I would just conservatively say like maybe 1/3. What you don't get in the free version is single sign-on, the ability to use LDAP so that you can expose these dashboards to other people in the organization. And that's really where we're finding a lot of the value, is saying, okay, let's give this to our front-end web developers or our front-end marketing design people and say, okay, here are the buttons they're clicking on. Here's the related database calls and how that structure kind of works. The other thing that Enterprise gives you is clustering and distributed, so that you can split these devices across your enterprise. Oops. So the setup is really simple. One server setup is what you can do at home today, right now on your laptop. You can point it at any text-based data. So if you just do a search on your computer for something that's star.log, you can point it at this and kind of take a look. The free version, actually, our developers had been using it and didn't realize they were on the free version because that's all they ever needed. There wasn't that much in the logs. But once you scale up and really go into production, you'll probably need the enterprise license. There's two components. There's the Splunk server, and that's where all your searches are running. And then there's the Splunk forwarder. The forwarder is an agent that you install on the devices that you want to monitor. And then your Splunk server, you'll point it at different folders that have log files in it. Or you can specify some regexes. There's a lot of customization there. The other thing you can do is send your data to a syslog server. So if you have a lot of machines, one example we have is smart power units. They don't have a way that we could install an agent on them. So instead we forward all the events to a syslog and then have Splunk point at the syslog. So it's kind of two options you can go through. So here's the forwarder. This is all in the GUI. It's very simple to use, and I've had a really good experience with the IRC channel for Splunk. They're online pretty much all the time and answer quick questions, so if you get stuck. This is a bigger setup, so you would have lots of different servers with the forwarders installed, all pointing at one larger installation. So what can you Splunk? Anything with a timestamp, because again, that's the primary key of Splunk, it's time. Everything is event-based by time. So when you're trying to debug or when you're trying to look over, something happened at midnight, well, what were the preceding events? That seems to be the model that the people are using in operations. At minimum, you need two keys. Like I said, timestamp and something else. What we've found success with is actually taking use of the GUIDs and linking transactions across systems. So a user will start in the website, will pass along the GUID to the database, to the service layer, and any errors that happen. So we can actually see the whole trace of the user as they work through different layers of the system, which is really helpful because sometimes, the application developer will say, okay, I've gone as far as I can go to my end. It's probably the database guy, and blame gets shifted. So we can see that all at one time. Like I said, there are lots of use cases, and the primary one in our organization was InfoSec, but we're trying to leverage that same data store and use it in marketing, business analytics, et cetera, and mostly for operations. And I have to tell you, basically, the other thing this has replaced in our organization is emails when an error happens. I have seen people with 2,000 emails in a folder, all that say error. There's really no checking back. So one of the things we've been able to do is only create alerts after time has passed, after you get 20 events. Instead of getting an email for every time there's a timeout, you set it up so that you get emailed when the timeout exceeds the standard deviation of the number of times that it normally times out. So we're able to kind of quiet down the noise and only alert when events have escalated. Logs are everywhere. You can find data within the organization piped in so many different places, and we've been able to Splunk almost all of that. So at this point, a lot of us are saying, like, just Splunk everything so we can see it. If you have to go into a relational database, it's actually harder now for us. Splunk is worked out so that it's the amount of data, the throughput of data per day. So you'll want to watch that. Some developers like to really use those print statements. Others don't use it at all. There's a balance in between there, and there's some guidance that we wrote up about that. We have monitors and alerts to ping us when the threshold of the license starts to get close. Again, this is what it looks like. This is the regular user dashboard, and you would just search up here. So here we're saying, source all the VPN connections that have a user authenticated. So we could say if we've actually have some of our officers with a special alert, so that if our CEO gets 3 failed login attempts, that alerts up to CSOC. So in case it's like a spearfish or something. I'm going to go through that. I already told you the uses. This is just, again, an example of VPN logins. One of the nice things we're working on now is putting all the VPN logins on a Google map so we can see where everybody is in the country. It's pretty cool, and it's real time. One of the benefits, again, you're not waiting an hour or 2 hours to get this data. It's 30 seconds. So you can see in real time your web traffic hits, your VPN logins, et cetera. Again, transactions across devices. That's really the key here. It's not trying to get people out of their stovepipes of, I'm a DBA, I'm an app developer. You want to get them out of that and thinking, what is the system doing holistically across transactions? Many uses. These are just really basic reports. Like, it took me a second to group these. These are nice for managers to see. These are errors by application process. You can get, these are all available over the API, so you can actually push these as websites and dashboards and give your website some interactivity. Here's a look at like the daily volume. Those peaks and troughs are at night, and the rest of the time it's during the day. And that was all way too many words, so we're not going to read that. And if you want to know more, there's my number, my email. Basically, I can show you how to do any of these searches really quick, and ask me any questions. I'd be happy to help. Yeah?
Okay, this isn't a question, but it's a, I know about Splunk, and I just wanted about security concern.
Yeah.
So once you've taken all your logs and put them in a centralized place.
How do you lock it down? Right.
No. It's not just locking it down. You can give different people access to different forwarders, different apps. But if you start searching for things like passwords, even though you shouldn't have passwords in the logs, you're going to expose it to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you should have your risk people have access to all of your Splunk sites.
Yeah, actually,
it's very easy to find things. I'm not saying they should be in there, but you now made it very accessible.
That's the thing, and actually we're grappling with that from an information policy perspective daily, is trying to get an agreement, because our users, because with this, we can see when they badge in, when they badge out, when they make phone calls, because it doesn't matter what type of logs. It doesn't have to be just computers. It's anytime they interact with any device. So what if people are coming in at 8 when they said they're coming in at 7, and the guy down the hall figures that out? So we're dealing with those information policy issues now to get guidance.
Correlate anything very quickly.
And people are really good at pattern recognition machines, and they see.
Have a lot of plugins too.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, so there's Splunk Storm, which is the cloud service. I think you get 1 gigabyte per day, and it's really helpful for the Amazon ECE kind of Amazon EC2 installations. I don't need to use. I mean, I have it at work, but it's just as fully functional. Okay, see me after if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Thanks.